So good afternoon, everybody. My name's Jason Eads and I'm the Director of Aboriginal Melbourne here at the City of Melbourne. Before we commence, I'm just going to do a couple of housekeeping matters. The bathrooms, if you're looking for them, are located on my left, your right, over through those glass doors. And in the unlikely event that there is an emergency, please follow the instructions of Town Hall staff. And can we please make sure our mobile phones are either switched off or on silent? That would be great. So thank you all for joining us here at Melbourne Town Hall for this special oration event with our keynote speaker, Antoinette Braybrook. A special welcome to all of her guests from Jira, and to thank you to everyone who is tuning in online and of course here in the room. I would like to acknowledge that today we are gathered on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Eastern Kulin, and I pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I also want to acknowledge all the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the room with us today, and of course the Aboriginal people joining us via the live stream. But can I please ask you to make welcome Uncle Tony Garvey, who will be welcoming us to Wurundjeri Country. Please make him welcome.
up a bit. Jeez, I was expecting a little bit more than that. Can we have one more? Better look at my clock. Good afternoon, everyone. I didn't want to say good morning, just in case. Look, I'd like to start off with saying Wurundjeri to everyone. So Wurundjeri in the Wurundjeri language means welcome. So welcome to Indigenous and non-Indigenous people here today. Just want to say I'm very proud and honoured to be standing here tall for my people, the Wurundjeri people from Corrindurk out at Hillsville. My great-grandfather was the last Nurrungita. His name was Robert Wandoon. He took over from our fearless leader, King Barak. King Barak was our fearless leader that took on the government for land rights in the 1980s, right up till 1906 when he passed. When it was handed over to my great-grandfather, his name was Robert Wandoon. He led our mob till 1926 when the mission was closed due to colonisation and being forced out into white society. The Wurundjeri people, they were also a part of the Kuku Nation, so Kuku means man. In the Kuku Nation, we had 5 language groups. We had the Wadawurrung to the west, the Coorong, who were the westerly neighbours to the Wadawurrung, Tanarong to the northeast, Bunurong to the southwest, and the Wurrung of the Wurundjeri territory that we stand on here today. The Wurundjeri lies of inner cities of Melbourne, extend from the mountains of the Great Dividing Range, south of the Yarra River to the Mordialloc Creek, west to the Werribee River and east to Mount Baw. The Wurundjeri people, they have a social totem. It is Bunjil the eagle. Bunjil represents spiritual powers throughout many parts of Australia. Bunjil taught all the laws about life, behaviour and ceremonies to make sure that our culture would continue for all walks of life throughout Australia. So Bunjil was referred to as the creator of mankind. Bunjil created great people from the land, and that is why we call the land our mother, or the mother of creation. Never can the land be taken away. The land will always belong to Aboriginal people, as we are part of the land and the land is part of us. Our story is similar to the European people. Theirs is by their chosen faith, ours is by the dream time. We both have creators and beliefs, and ours is Bunjil. It is a traditional custom of the Australian Aboriginal communities to be asked and to give permission for people to enter their lands. And today you have now joined with me to honour the spirits of my ancestors, past, present and emerging, who have nurtured this land for over 60,000 years. And we, as the owners of the lands, offer a heartily welcome to the lands and hope that together as citizens of this beautiful country, we can build, develop and unite stronger nations for all peoples. I'll close in the Wurrung language, which is Wurundjeri, Wandoon, Wurundjeri, Balak, Yim and Kumbibik, which means you're most welcome to the land of the Wurundjeri people. Before we jump down and we get that loud clap again, maybe a little bit louder this time. I just want to touch on a couple of things. Obviously, we've got the most important stuff coming up now. We've got reconciliation week, so now's our opportunity to really get our culture out there, express it, get your hearts in place, get together, reunite, come together as one. You're going to be the biggest threat to the government if you unite as one. Let's stop worrying about who comes from where and what comes from what. We are black fellas, we're black all right across Australia. Let's work this together and work it in together. We'll get a voice in Parliament. It's going to give us a bit of power, a bit of say over what happens to our people, which should have happened a long time ago. We've got the treaty process too. You know, the treaty process, we've got to get these things right. We really have to nail these right. And look, we've got a little bit of time to get it right too. So, I'm just a little bit frustrated. It does frustrate me. It sticks in my guts every day of the week is why we're asking the European people of Australia for a treaty. I don't get it, and I don't get it for a face in Parliament neither. Our face should have been the first face in Parliament, not the last. I'd just like to thank you very much for having me here today. And as I said, unite. United you stand, divided we fall, okay? So let's get behind each other and work this together. Thank you very much.
So as you all know, this week is National Reconciliation Week. It's a time for all of us to learn more about our shared histories, cultures and achievements, and explore how we can achieve reconciliation in Australia. Saturday was the official start of Reconciliation Week and marks the anniversary of the 1967 referendum. 56 years ago, and remains the most successful referendum in Australia's history. This year's theme, Be a Voice for Generations, it prompts us to consider how can we be the voices for tangible change in our everyday lives? What meaningful actions can we take now to make a future a fairer, more reconciled, and for the benefit of all generations? Since colonisation, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have advocated tirelessly for a fairer country that recognises and respects our rich cultures, identities and histories. We have overcome so much, but we still have a lot to go. But the path to a truly reconciled future is one that all Australians must embrace and embark on together, and one that begins with truth-telling. That is what makes me so excited about events like today. Seeing so many of you here from all careers, cultures, ages, and so many of you, of walks of life, coming together to hear from powerful voices like Antoinette's and engaging meaningful discussions about reconciliation truly gives me hope for what our future looks like. It might help if I take my glasses off, believe it or not. I lead an amazing team here at the City of Melbourne, the Aboriginal Melbourne team, whose work on projects such as the Aboriginal Mapping Project, the Stolen Generations Marker, and other exciting activities, including those that are scheduled for Reconciliation Week. Keep an eye out for some of our events this week, including the Mabo Day concert. But today, of course, we're here for the Oration, and it exemplifies our commitment to truth-telling and reconciliation. To learn more about our commitments, please join me in welcoming our Lord Mayor, Sally Capp, to the stage. Lord Mayor.
Hello everybody, it really is wonderful to see this room so packed today for this oration and to kick off our activities for National Reconciliation Week. Thank you, Jason, to you and your team for really driving this event and so many others. I'm honoured to be up here today as the Lord Mayor of Melbourne. I'm joined by Councillor Dr Olivia Bull and Councillor Jamal Hakim, our Acting CEO Alison Layton, Jason Eads, who leads Aboriginal Melbourne, and so many of our City of Melbourne team here today. Thank you, and so many guests who wanted to join us for this very important oration. I don't want to say too many big words like that because I know Antoinette's already feeling the pressure of being our orator this year, but we really are very excited to be here to join and support you for this important event. But thank you everybody for coming and joining us today. Of course, we are here on the lands of the Wurundjeri people. I pay respects to elders past and present, also to the Bunurong people on whose land we also govern at the City of Melbourne and govern with, as an important theme, with our traditional owners. Thank you so much to Uncle Tony Garvey. I know there are many elders in the room today. On behalf of the City of Melbourne, we pay our respects to you and thank you for your care of the land and the waterways to acknowledge and honour the unbroken spiritual, political and cultural connection that you've had with this land for more than 2,000 generations, and to have your welcome here today, Uncle Tony, on behalf of the Wurundjeri Wurrung is always appreciated, and the fact that you add in always some very proactive messages about what we can all be doing to make a difference is also a strong sign of your leadership. So thank you very much. More clapping for Uncle Tony Garvey. Always a superstar, thank you. But look, it is important in Reconciliation Week that we are really listening and paying attention to the words that we're saying, because so often as a non-Aboriginal person I'm doing an acknowledgement of country and I'm saying thank you, but to really take the time this week to ensure that those words resonate, that we use those words as action points to stimulate changes in our behaviour, changes in our community is vital, and all of us have a role to play in that regard, so that we are doing better with our traditional owners leading the way, and feel fortunate to be on this place with such a resonating and continuing ancient culture that is deserving of respect. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here and for reflecting on those words. Of course, this year it is Be a Voice for Generations, the amplification of what we talk about this week, what we honour and what we uncover in truth-telling is part of a very important national discussion this year as the voice is considered. And I know that all of us are playing a role in progressing, whether it's around kitchen tables and important discussions with family, through to what we're doing on the various platforms we have in our roles, whether it's professionally or in other community roles. We all have that role to progress these important discussions. And we acknowledge that we still have a long way to go, but there's a really important marker coming up this year where we can, as Uncle Tony said, all unite. I know that even now, in the early stages of debates and discussions, there are conflicting views on what should happen, whether it's at the big strategic discussion or it's into the detail of how it's going to be implemented. These are important discussions, and I encourage everyone to continue them. But in our case here at the City of Melbourne, I did want to state where we stand on these important issues. We believe we are a city that is strengthened by the enduring Aboriginal identity, contribution and leadership to this city, that we need to work harder to reflect those Aboriginal voices and leaders and history and culture in our city. And that's why earlier this year we considered the Uluru Statement from the Heart and the Voice at a council meeting. We made some very important decisions unanimously. Firstly, that we support wholeheartedly the Uluru Statement from the Heart. Secondly, that we would undertake a communication, information and education campaign so that more of our citizens can be involved in meaningful debate and discussion as we head into the referendum. And thirdly, that resoundingly we support the Yes campaign for the Voice debate or Voice referendum later this year. There are three very important decisions made earlier at the City of Melbourne. This then builds on the work that we have underway under our Reconciliation Action Plan, and I'm really pleased that we can continue to highlight many of the things that we're doing at Town Hall, including a Stolen Generations marker in our municipality, and we'll have more to say on that later this year. But I recognise that particularly since National Sorry Day was just on Friday. Today, in terms of amplifying voices, we are absolutely delighted, firstly, that this oration goes from strength to strength every year. We've gone from a small group of people coming together to this packed room today. And as I said, we're absolutely delighted that you're here. But I know that that really reflects the standing and the significance of our orator this year, who is our Melburnian of the Year as well, Antoinette Braybrook. Antoinette is a proud Kuku Yalanji woman who is doing outstanding work as the CEO of JIRA, an organisation that advocates and supports Aboriginal women and people experiencing domestic violence. She is the first Aboriginal person to be awarded Melburnian of the Year, and I know that she has many firsts on her resume as somebody who's been a strident champion, pushing through many barriers to create the platform of voices for those that would not otherwise be heard. And Antoinette, we applaud the work that you and your JIRA team do each and every day to make a difference in people's lives and literally saving lives. So thank you very much for that incredible work that you do. We know that you'll have some insightful things to say today, and I'm actually the warm-up act, so I'm going to stop speaking. After lunch, we're looking forward to hearing from you, and please know that you're amongst many friends and supporters, and we're here to listen actively today. We are at the City of Melbourne pleased to have a number of events during Reconciliation Week. This, of course, today is leading the way, and it is being recorded, so we encourage you to, again, amplify Antoinette's voice across our networks by sharing the recording of this event. We, at the City Library on Thursday, will be having Deadly Book Yarns. I just love that. Deadly book yarns with storytelling and truth-telling, and all starting there in our City Library on Thursday, which will be fantastic. And, of course, Federation Square on Saturday, the Mabu Day concert. It's a wonderful, did I say Mabu? I'm thinking Mabu, the restaurant. Mabo Day concert, recognising, of course, that incredible decision at the High Court, which really changed the paradigm here in Australia, and rightly so. And we're really pleased to be supporting that concert in Federation Square. So get on down. I'm going to leave it there. I hope you feel inspired and invigorated at the end of the oration today, and that all of us be part of a voice for generations in creating change here in Australia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, for your inspiring words. Before we have our lunch and hear from Annie afterwards, I just want to do a bit of a promo. On your tables, you will find a flyer on JIRA. Fantastic organisation, and I know Annie will speak to more about this, but I encourage you to check it out. And if you're so inclined, there's some details there to give to a very worthy cause. So please have a look. Also, as you entered, for the non-City of Melbourne people, you would have been given a ticket for the draw. Do not let go of those tickets. We have some fabulous giveaways that we will give out after we've heard from Antoinette. ladies and gentlemen, if I can have all your attention again. Hello, everybody. If you could take your seats again, please. Can I also thank those that are tuning in online for your patience as we get things underway again. I hope you are or did enjoy that meal. I would now like to introduce our special guest and the keynote speaker, Antoinette Braybrook. Antoinette is Kuku Yalanji woman who was born here in Victoria on Wurundjeri Country. She's a highly regarded advocate and public speaker who seeks to give a voice to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who have experienced family violence. Antoinette is the founding CEO of JIRA, an Aboriginal community-controlled organisation that delivers holistic, culturally safe and specialist family violence support across Victoria. JIRA provides legal support, case management and wellbeing services and programs to those experiencing family violence. This work is on the front line and informs their advocacy for system-wide changes that improve the access to the justice system, eliminate systemic violence and strengthen women's resilience. Antoinette also serves as co-chair of the Change the Record campaign, Australia's only national First Nations-led justice coalition of legal, health and family violence preventative experts. She is a fierce advocate for First Nations women at a national and international level, holding a number of positions on advisory groups, expert panels, and in consultation roles for the state and federal organisation. Antoinette has received wide recognition for her incredible work over the years. As the Lord Mayor mentioned, she made history last year by being the first Aboriginal person to be named Melburnian of the Year at the 2022 Melbourne Awards. It's an honour and a privilege to have Antoinette here to speak at our special event today. Please join me in welcoming Antoinette to the stage.
Wow. I begin by acknowledging that we are gathering on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I acknowledge and thank Uncle Tony Garvey, who I think has left, for welcoming us here today and allowing us safe passage on your land. Also for allowing me to speak freely and to provide a personal view on something so significant to our people. I also acknowledge Naarm as a significant gathering place for the collective clans of the Kulin Nation. I would like to acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people present and online today, especially our elders and my mum and my brother, my dad and my other family and friends who are online. I acknowledge and thank Alison Layden, Acting CEO, Lord Mayor Sally Capp and Jason Eads and the City of Melbourne for inviting me to deliver this year's Reconciliation Oration, Be a Voice for Generations. I acknowledge JIRA staff, current and former, here today and listening online, and our supporters, and of course the women who continue to put their trust and belief in us, their lives and children's lives in our hands. As you have heard, my name is Antoinette Braybrook. I was born and have lived all of my life on Wurundjeri Country, but my family is Kuku Yalanji from far north Queensland. And I have been the CEO of JIRA since its inception just over 20 years ago. And I'm also co-chair of Change the Record with my First Nations sister, Cheryl Axelby. I have always known that my authority to do what I do, to initiate, agitate and advocate, comes from being an Aboriginal woman with my own experiences and history, and from the trust and confidence women place in me. CEO titles make sense and open doors in the white world, not so much in the Aboriginal world. As I'm speaking, I ask that you see the women on the screen and see within each woman her own individual and unique story of strength and courage, a story which reverberates in and around the shared knowledge and experience of all Aboriginal women. A sister, a mother, an auntie, a daughter, a grandmother. Can you feel the hope? Can you see the resilience? It's almost palpable. The women, the reason why JIRA is what it is today, the very reason why JIRA will continue into the future for generations to come. It has been First Nations women who have done the heavy lifting and continue to carry a load. Our women who have been vocal and fervent, not silent, about the violence we experience from individuals of many cultures and backgrounds, not silent about the systemic violence and racism we experience from government agencies that see our kids taken at alarming rates, that see our people achieve an abhorrent, heartbreaking record, the most incarcerated in the world. Yet, it is our women who are consistently silenced, sidelined, and rendered invisible by racist and violent systems and structures that oppress, marginalise, and take our lives. So, to be clear, First Nations women are not and have not been silent. We have been silenced, disbelieved, and our lives not valued. Which brings me right here, right now, here I am as an Aboriginal woman standing in front of you, delivering the reconciliation oration for the City of Melbourne. Something I would never have imagined, and especially in those darkest times as a 14-year-old, told by a teacher, reinforced by my peers, that I would never amount to anything. I have a voice. I am not invisible, but are you listening? The theme for this Reconciliation Week is Be a Voice for Generations. Today, I will share a little about my personal journey and my integral link to JIRA. JIRA is a specialist Aboriginal community-controlled organisation, one that prioritises women and children's safety through culturally safe frontline services and programs. In taking this approach, I hope to draw out the reason why I have come to the conclusion that you may consider a provocative conclusion that after my early life, the teenager and the young adult growing up with more memories of racism than inclusion, followed by 20 years of working at the front line of women and children's safety, I have an increasingly ambivalent attitude towards the notion of reconciliation. Maybe we have reached the place of irreconcilable differences, the end of the road, or maybe we have reached the summit and we can park it in the readiness for the next important stage, in the journey to an historic, tangible, meaningful change. And so the important question for you to consider is, where do we go from here? It is not lost on me that we are at a turning point. And this year, 2023, could bring that momentous change, partly achieved in 1967, into sharp focus, the realisation of self-determination in a practical and symbolic sense for First Nations people in this country. I am also extremely conscious of the hatred that is descending on all of us at this critical time. For us as First Nations people, the extremist views, white supremacy, lateral violence, not just attacking our personal safety, but also making platforms unsafe, media and social media. For me, I know that today, as an Aboriginal woman speaking my truth, I am exposed. I am fearful, even more than ever before. I'm anxious about what might follow, but this fear, I have learnt, fuels my determination, fortifies me, and I continue standing up for what I believe in. I will stay true, stay the course. My determination comes from my family's story, our Aboriginal story. Its meaning for me today and how particular history explains who I am now and what I will pass on to future generations in my family. My grandfather, Billy Bargo, Mum's dad, an Aboriginal man, born in far north Queensland in the early 1900s. He was a performer, a whip cracker, yodeler, a horseback jumper. My nan, a non-Aboriginal woman, was his beautiful showgirl, as she liked to call herself. Doing the roadshow circuits, winning prizes, they were famous. Back in those days, Granddad Billy had to get a permit from the Aboriginal Protection Board to travel between towns and states to earn enough money to support his family. My granddad, Billy Bargo, a strong, proud, cultural man, was held under a Queensland Act of Parliament, the Aborigines Protection and Sale of Opium Act. Do you hear in this title the paternalism, the coercive control, the racist degradation of an adult man's integrity, freedom, and First Nations authority and presence? Around 1951, Billy Bargo and his beautiful showgirl, my nan, set off to Aotearoa to do the rodeo circuit. My mum was 5 years old and she stayed with family. This would be the last time my mum saw her dad. Nan came back for what was to be a short visit to see the kids, but she never made it back to Aotearoa. When Nan came back, the white authorities had caught up with my granddad, Billy Bargo. They wanted Nan to coax him, the black man, back into Australia so they could throw the book at him. Nan refused to do this. My grandfather was being hunted by the authorities simply because he did not get permits to travel around his own country. He never returned home. Mum searched for him when she was old enough. Māori community knew him. They called him the Rainmaker. But they didn't know where he'd gone. We found out he died in 1962. He only lived for another 12 years. I wonder if it was his broken heart, knowing he would never again see his kids, feel the healing from his own land, the Mother Spirit. Maybe he felt it was better for him to be there, away from here, because he couldn't take the humiliation and indignity of begging for one more permit from the white man. The only way he could move across his own land, but always under surveillance. Granddad Billy Bargo didn't live long enough to know that a referendum happened and succeeded in 1967. If he lived just a few more years longer, he may have made it back home to be with his family. White Australia policies, while some will say were finally removed from legislation by the 1970s, still remain in sentiment and action. We know that insidious racist intent lives on and thrives in contemporary laws, regulations and practices, child protection, prisons, bail, to name a few, inevitably impacting on our lives. The lived experience of social exclusion for my family, like many others, started early in life, and it never stops. My mum, at the time of the 67 referendum, 2 kids, me and my brother, we were all stateless and without legal rights on a land which our ancestors had walked since the beginning of time. Our little brother Ryan, born in the early 70s. Mum, as a young Aboriginal woman, lived in fear of the constant intimidation from the white authorities that they would act on their threats and take us kids. From the moment she gave birth in the hospital, Mum dreaded any time when we were out of her sight or in the view of the white systems. Sending us to school, taking us to the doctors, nowhere was safe except for home, behind a locked door. And my mum succeeded in keeping us safe. My story is not just a story of the past. These policies and injustices continue to materialise in different ways, but with the same intention today: to oppress, marginalise, demonise. But despite this, Aboriginal people remain resilient, strong in culture and determined. Our fight for justice, human rights and a future dignified and self-determined will never cease until it is achieved. Our daily lives are complex, fraught with risks, peril, invisible, living in a dominant culture, harsh and dangerous. Our personal experiences, life, cannot be separated from our professional experiences, life. It is one, our Aboriginal world. Follow me. Here, appreciate what we must navigate in order to remain visible and heard. The opportunities, the challenges that come each day, every year, and what we devote our lives to as First Nations people, as we build, as we lead organisations, as we nurture our families. There are multifaceted elements of contemporary society which impact upon us: the political environment, the systems and the structures of government, the sporting world, the many public events of civil society. We cycle through the commemorations, campaigns, inquiries each year. Some come from the nation's guilt, some from good intentions, some founded on ignorance, and some just plain tokenism. Others come from our demands for change. We fight to be counted for safety, equality, justice and respect. We call for reports and recommendations to be acted on. We fight, we protest, we agitate every minute of every day of every year because we want to be heard and because we want change. Let me take you on a journey through the year, any year and every year we live as First Nations people. 26th of January, Invasion Day, others call it Australia Day. That's a mindset we strongly oppose. We protest, calling for the date, the symbolism, to be abolished, because for us it represents loss, theft, devastation, massacres. We watch while others throw snags on the Barbie and fly the flag, red, white and blue, oozing with pride for a country built on the self-belief of a fair go for all. Hardly. Then, in February, we wait for the government's tabling of its report in federal parliament, only to reveal yet again that it has failed in its responsibility to close the gap. Our health status poor, our life expectancy still lower, our children removed, taken at a far greater rate than at any time since white settlement. Suicide rates worsen, more of our people criminalised and imprisoned, more women and children's lives lost because of family violence, too many left unsafe, mainstream responses invested in while Aboriginal solutions are not. Aboriginal women's safety politicised, our people labelled violent, our communities marked as unsafe. Along comes March. It's International Women's Day, first celebrated by women in Australia in 1928. But for Aboriginal women in that same year, and for many years to follow, we had no legal rights over our land, our children, no freedom to speak our language, to practice culture, no right to work, to be educated. We were not citizens. We were slaves trained for the white man and his family. Still today, our fight for equality is bigger than gender. It's about our sovereignty. It's about our self-determination. And we continue to call on our non-Aboriginal sisters to stand beside us. April. We remember and acknowledge the sacrifice our people made defending this country. For the first time in 2017, our veterans finally permitted to march together with others on National Anzac Day. April, the anniversary of the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody. We are outraged that the 339 recommendations still, 32 years later, have not been implemented. More of our people continue to die in custody at alarming rates. 540 of our people have died since this Royal Commission. When will this stop? May. We celebrate and reflect on the anniversary of the 1967 referendum. We were counted, we had rights. A week of reconciliation sees businesses, not-for-profits, corporate entities and other mainstream organisations scramble to remember and then fulfil their promises made in their reconciliation action plans and invite us to speak to their staff. With Reconciliation Week and its focused themes each year, we seize the opportunity to advance our advocacy calls, broaden the agenda, frame the narrative with our words, stories and experiences. 10 years ago, 2013, the theme was Let's Talk Recognition. And today, 10 years on, be a voice for generations. It is time to move past themes. It's time for action. May is a hard month for many, but especially for our stolen generations. We see and feel many of our people reliving the pain. We remember the ones who never came home, those still searching. We remember the hope we felt, we witnessed, the emotion, the hope expressed by our elders when Rudd apologised, marking the day as National Sorry Day. But still, 26 years later, we call for the Bringing Them Home report to be implemented. Budget week comes and goes, and it's the same old story. No new money, loss of funding, maybe a little sweetener just to keep us quiet, changing the goalposts, transferring funding responsibility, rebadging a government department, the National Indigenous Australians Agency, repackaging Indigenous Advancement Strategy and announcing them as new initiatives, all intended to destabilise and keep us in our place. Aboriginal life still not valued, our women and children's safety still not a priority, and our specialist self-determined solutions still not invested in. July, a week we all look forward to, NAIDOC Week, a national week to honour and recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. We get to slow down and celebrate our culture and our identity, our achievements, spend time with our families, recognise our strengths as individuals, as organisations, our self-determination. Many non-Aboriginal people join in, acknowledge some uncomfortable truths, and feel a little relieved because we have welcomed them. August. It's National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Children's Day. This day should be about celebrating our kids, thriving in every aspect of their lives, being strong in identity and culture. But instead, for us, it's about calling out the systemic racism that sees our kids taken from their mums and families. Still, our calls to invest in supporting mums to escape violence with their kids go unheard, ignored. Aboriginal women are punished and blamed for the violence they experience and misidentified and criminalised. And still, the systems responsible invested in. Today, nationally, there are 22,000 Aboriginal kids in care. In Victoria, 2,600. I have only ever seen these numbers rise. Our pleas, our call on government to raise the age of criminal responsibility to at least 14, still not acted upon. As the year rushes towards closure, 16 days of activism kicks off in November. It's a time to amplify our calls to end violence against Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women and their children, and call for an end to the systemic racism and violence we endure. We welcome the commitment to a standalone plan to end violence against our First Nations women, but a commitment is not action. Where is our dedicated plan? One that invests in and prioritises Aboriginal women and children's safety, one that invests in our solutions and our self-determination. Violence against First Nations women is happening at epidemic levels. We demand our plan and our solutions invested in. Finally, on the 10th of December, it's Human Rights Day, but still our rights as First Nation people of this country are violated, not protected. Coronial inquests into deaths in custody, murdered women continue to report no evidence of criminal responsibility. The murder of an Aboriginal woman under the radar are not worthy of a media report. Overt racism attracts investigations and reviews, but application of the law is a rare find. Today, we are only halfway through 2023, but we know what to expect next year and the year after that. We will do it all again, but with another day to add to our calendar. The day of the referendum, where the people voted. What will this day represent? Will it be a date to celebrate? A day to look back on as a turning point in history? A day that told us people voted with their hearts? Or a day we mourn, a day we look back on as another light bulb moment, again reminding us that racism thrives, the racial divide survives, colonisation continues. But our fight will continue, as it always has and as it must. Our people's lives adapt. Our focus sharpens, is refined, reflecting on the past and the current political landscape. But the only real change The only devastating change will be that next year and the year after that and the year after that, it will be a different Aboriginal person, a woman, a man, a child, family or community targeted by individual and systemic racism and violence, murdered because of family violence, because of police brutality, classified as a suicide, bashed and left for dead. An Aboriginal kid, his life's taken just for walking home from school. So, can you see why I said at the start that I'm not sold on the whole notion of reconciliation? If anything, to make it all worthwhile, I will concede that now in 2023, I believe we have reached the summit. Our people have endured enough and given more. It's over to you now to decide. I wonder if Reconciliation Week will continue next year, or will it be reframed as National Irreconcilable Differences Week? (2023), yes, we have an opportunity to try something different. Yes, this is a new chapter, not the final word. My grandfather, like so many others, did not get to live a life where he was counted in 1967. He died before that. Mum found his resting place more than 20 years after he died. He was buried in an unmarked grave in the Maori section of Wakameet Cemetery in Auckland. Our family travelled over to give him the send-off to the dreaming he so deserved. His resting place now marked with a headstone bearing the Aboriginal flag and engraved with the names of people who loved him. You know, each time we visit, it rains. But as soon as we reach his resting place, the sun shines so bright. I guess this is his way of letting us know that he knows we are coming. After all, he was called the Rainmaker. I want more than anything for my old people, my family, my mum, to experience a new direction. One filled with real hope, real change for her children and for her grandchildren and their children to follow. I want my nieces and nephew to know that we gave it our all, to change the narrative, the course, to have their say on issues that are so deeply personal to their lives, to our lives. A voice that can't be taken away at the stroke of a pen when government change and when we no longer fit a political agenda. This turning point will not create a racial divide, as some might say. It already exists. It's just not spoken about, or it's invisible to others because they choose not to see it. It is visible and felt by us. It is our life. I respectfully ask you to reflect on everything I've spoken about, the devastating statistics, the over and under representation in every social determinant, and start taking responsibility and carrying some of this load. In finishing up, I want to take you back to the start, the women. I hope that after all I've shared, you can now see more than ever their resilience, their courage. See First Nations women from many different Aboriginal nations across Victoria, who between them have hundreds of children and grandchildren, some with great-grandchildren. Women who shine, women who I don't speak for, but women I look to, women who I surround myself with, women who speak for themselves, women who must be heard. As an Aboriginal woman, I stand with my many brothers and sisters, my family and others who refuse to be complicit in contributing to and perpetuating this deficit narrative. Yes, I want change. Yes, it's time to make a difference. Yes, it's time to be heard. Yes, it's time for truth. Yes, it's time for a more equitable future. Yes, this is a new chapter, not the final word. Yes, this is about trust. And yes, it is time for others to take responsibility and carry some of the load and feel privileged in doing so. And finally, I would like to leave you with this quote from Maya Angelou. For me, it sums up nicely the journey I've taken you on for what we as a society are about to embark upon. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Thank you.
Sorry, everyone. We have time for a couple of questions from out of the audience, but just wow, Antoinette. And I know in talking to you leading up to the ask for you to do this event, you keep reminding me that it's not about you, it's about the way that people empower you. But I think that we do need to recognise that it takes a special person to grab a hold of that and actually help create the kind of change we want to see in the world. So, again, everybody, please. All right. We have time for a couple of questions if you're up for it. Who would like to start us off? Don't be shy.
Be shy.
Don't be shy. I'm looking around the room. Come on, Jura staff. This is your opportunity to ask us something. Yes, Lord Mayor.
Thank you so much, Antoinette. Many thought-provoking and important messages and calls to action there. One of the things that you focused on was how do we share responsibility for progress and advancement. We've been talking about that around the table today. I wondered if you could give us some examples of where you've seen that done well in your time as JIRA CEO, that sharing of responsibility.
My time with JIRA. I think that for non-Aboriginal people, you need to check in on yourself at times and don't put that burden on us as Aboriginal people. With respect to this year being such a significant and pivotal year, I think that over to you to start carrying the load and speaking to your family, your friends about the change needed for our people. As I said, I think that is just a starting point. It's not everything. It's not the final word. But take some of that responsibility away from us and you start speaking it. We're always putting ourselves in the firing line and we need you to do that too.
Any other questions from the floor? Yes. There's a microphone coming at you.
Antoinette, for non-Aboriginal people who might feel anxious and think that, I've never spoken to an Aboriginal person, or what if I say the wrong thing and I feel uncomfortable? And have you got any advice for us? You know, what should we do? Because it's a barrier if people feel it's easier just to look away rather than maybe say the wrong thing or feel embarrassed.
Like I just said before, don't put that burden on us. You need to take responsibility for how you feel.
And we have one question right up the back.
Thanks, Antoinette. I heard you say what stood out to me is that you expressed the wish for you to see, for your mother to be able to see the change, and that really stood out to me because you're saying that you want it to move fast. You know, what you want. What's one thing that you would want your mother to see before she goes to dreaming time? I really like you said that because that means you want it soon.
One thing. I think that, you know, when I talked about my grandfather not being able to know about the referendum or see it succeed, I think that, you know, I would like my mum, my family to see some change this year through our people all uniting on the things that need to change. And there are so many things that I could refer to about, you know, the number of deaths in custody that continue to rise, the number of children being taken from our families, the high rates of violence against our women, the high incarceration rates of our women, our people. I think that there's got to be a circuit breaker for all of those things to change, and I want this year to be that circuit breaker.
I think that's a tough question to answer when your mum's sitting in the room looking at you. Antoinette, we have a small, very small token of appreciation, a gift for you, some flowers. Katrina, please come up. I have another gift there as well. Before you disappear on us from stage, I'm wondering if you would do us the kind duty of drawing 3 winners of our hampers. Now, these hampers, there is something like 14 Aboriginal businesses represented in each of the hampers. It's our small way of being able to make sure that we're giving back into the Aboriginal business sector as well. So I'll hold the bag.
I should have kept the glasses. Black D, 89. Oh, another black one. D74. Black D38. Oh, D38.
So,
I'm Yalanji to my sister.
just give me. Antoinette's like, can I go? Can I go? Can I go? So before she goes, can we just give her another round of applause? So thank you, everybody. That does conclude our events today. But once again, I really do want to thank Antoinette for taking the time to speak with us. Each year, this event grows from strength to strength, and who knows, maybe next year we'll see you up in Town Hall. Thanks, everybody.